welcome to Good Game, the show for gamers, by gamers. I'm Junglist.
And I'm Bajo. Massive show this week, gamers. We'll be handing down some chickens to a game that rewrites history as if the Cold War never ended.
And first-person shooter fans have been anticipating enemy territory Quake Wars for quite some time now. And Stan Lee is on the show, the original creator of Spider-Man, the Hulk, X-Men, and many more superheroes.
But before all that, it's time to boot up those memory cells. Can you guess the name of the game this week? Now, Jung, this one is a little bit easy, so we're just going to give you some sounds. And for an extra point, can you guess the name of the developer that worked on this as his first paid gig in the industry?
I don't know, I think we're going to keep all the points this week, Badge.
Should we give them a hint? All right, he's now working on a game involving one of TV's classic families.
Answer at the end of the show. World in Conflict is a brand new entry into the crowded real-time strategy market, but it comes armed with a revolutionary multiplayer system and a tense and involved single-player campaign to boot.
The game is set in an alternate universe where the Cold War never ended and America was invaded by Russia. It's up to you to push them back to the sea.
Ah, yes, that old chestnut. You know, the whole alternate history thing, Resistance Fall of Man did it, Freedom Fighters, Turning Point, but that's not to say it's a bad idea. World in Conflict sees you fighting in several locations, including a faithfully recreated Seattle and the obligatory inclusion of New York City.
And just so they could call it World in Conflict, there's also a few missions in Europe.
That said, the developers have spent a lot of time crafting a believable and engaging storyline that attempts to get the player emotionally involved, and on this point it succeeds very well.
And I think it's largely due to the game's environments and battlefields. There's artillery and explosions everywhere, buildings crashing down, the draw distances are massive.
Most single-player missions see you fighting alongside allies, and all these things together make you feel like you're fighting in a bigger war rather than just a few small skirmishes.
Multiplayer is an even bigger pressure cooker with up to 16 people in a game. It's got a drop-in, drop-out feature that is common to first-person shooter games, but pretty much unheard of in real-time strategy.
In terms of actual gameplay, the action is more focused on tactics and micromanagement rather than deep-thinking strategy. Instead of building bases, you have drop zones and you parachute units in. You only have a small amount of reinforcement points available to you and only a handful of units at the same time. There's also a variety of tactical aid options in the form of artillery barrages and airstrikes.
Usually your main mission objective is to secure control points, but other missions will see you providing support to allies or defending against the horde of the Red Army.
We have to pull out now! Retreat! Sir, retreat!
Jung, I really like this drop-in, drop-out feature. It means you can get your quick dose of gamage, and there's nothing worse than setting up a big StarCraft match and having someone drop out at the last second.
Absolutely, they've eliminated one of the major pitfalls in RTS. I also really like how they've positioned themselves as a clan sort of competition game, but they really deliver on the single-player side of things as well. And you know, they only give you a small amount of units, smaller than your normal RTS, so you're forced to work together with your teammates.
It's really good they did this because even though games can be designed for multiplayer as their main function, most people still buy it for the single-player campaign.
That's true.
It took me a while to get used to the camera controls, though, I've got to say. How did you find it? And the WASD?
Yeah, you know, I did the tutorial at the beginning and I found it pretty intuitive. I didn't have much problem with it.
Are you calling me a noob?
You are a noob.
You're a noob.
You're a noob. I did find it a bit difficult, though, to tell where your field of vision starts and stops. You can see all the terrain, but the fog of war is not, you know, it's black and white, so tanks pop out of thin air. It's a small flaw, but it's there.
If you've played Company of Heroes right the way through, you'll know there's one map which has 3 bridges that you have to control, and then halfway through the map, everything just goes nuts and you have to retreat. World in Conflict is like this the whole way through. It's good to have an RTS that claims to be something new, and actually is. John?
It's an innovative game, and I really love the drop-in, drop-out system. It means you don't have to commit to a 4-hour match. I'm giving it 8.5 rubber chickens out of 10.
I'm giving it 9.
Adventure games are one of the oldest genres, dating from just after the arcade era. Sometimes focusing on puzzles, sometimes on exploration, they always tell a good story and tell it well. The first adventure game was made by Will Crowther back in 1975, just a little bit before Space Invaders started raining down on Earth. Called Colossal Cave Adventure, the game was completely text-based. To interact with the world, you typed in commands like take axe or move south. The game became the inspiration for many would-be developers. In 1980, a developer called Infocom sold their first copy of Zork, which is widely credited with bringing adventure games to a wider audience. Players could now type in sentences, and it also introduced the idea of an enemy that you had to beat. Zork was so successful, it spawned numerous sequels. Infocom started the idea of having a collector's edition of a game with bonus content. They called them feelies, which usually took the form of maps or photos, or in the case of hitchhikers, peril-sensitive sunglasses. In the same year, another startup developer called Online Systems produced the first adventure game to incorporate graphics, called Mystery House. This breakthrough was followed up by King's Quest, Quest for the Crown in 1983 under their new name Sierra Online. King's Quest was great not only for its excellent gameplay, but for the first time the player had the ability to control a character in the third person. Sierra went on to produce heaps more Quest-type games, including Police Quest and Space Quest, as well as the infamous Leisure Suit Larry series. The next big thing in adventure games was the release of Maniac Mansion, a creation by Lucasfilm Games in 1987. This game introduced the SCUM engine, that stands for Script Creation Utility for Maniac Mansion. Rather than typing, the player used the mouse to click on specific phrases, then click on the scene to interact with the world. The game also had multiple characters and endings, all coupled with a brilliant, quirky sense of humor. This formula was replicated in later extremely popular titles such as Day of the Tentacle, Sam and Max Hit the Road,
Ooh, does this mean we get to kick some puffy white mad scientist butt?
Can't think of a reason not to.
and the Monkey Island series. By now, graphics in games had come a long way, and in 1993, the game Myst was released. This game used CD-ROM technology to give players an unprecedented level of graphic detail. All the scenes and worlds were pre-rendered. There were embedded movies, and exploration was done from a first-person perspective. People either loved it or hated it, but regardless, it became the top-selling PC game for many, many years until The Sims. So what's happened since? Well, there have been a few titles, such as The Longest Journey, a clever, story-driven adventure. But generally speaking, the adventure genre isn't doing too well these days, until you think of your favorite games and realize there's many adventure elements in them. Roaming the huge countryside in Oblivion, swinging on vines with pistols drawn as Lara Croft, and hiding in your first PvP zone so you don't get ganked in World of Warcraft. So although adventure is a dying breed, the storytelling, the exploration, the immersion lives on in these other games. And although it started from the humblest of beginnings, the adventure genre laid the foundation for many of the games we play today.
You know, Jung, I've played Dream 4 The Longest Journey, and it kind of was DOA for me, dead on arrival. I just feel like the adventure part of it wasn't enough to keep me interested.
Yeah, you need other stuff to combine with it now, like the hybrids. You know, I think it lives on in games like Heavenly Sword and God of War, the action-adventure series.
We'd love to hear your thoughts. Jump on the forums, but now...
Quarter Circle A.
Is it on?
I don't know. Yeah, I think
looks
so.
on.
I think, yeah.
Check it out, noob cakes. This is Raptor Face.
And this is Bastronaut.
And we're here to bring you the games that Good Game wasn't underground or hardcore enough to show you.
Yeah, while we're on work experience. This week, we're bringing you a remake of one of the classics.
Yeah, this is the game that cavemen played when they were reinventing the wheel.
Of course, we're talking about seminal Pong, reborn and kicking in its new release, Pong, The Way of the Achromatic Vein.
This new game of Pong rips off your face and crispies it over a rainbow of flames and awesome, utilizing next-gen graphics for a greater visual experience and bringing in fresh new features like bullet time to bring you a gameplay that you've never seen before in the paddle ball genre.
With a top-of-the-line game like this, you need top-of-the-line voiceovers, and this game has one of the top-of-the-linest, none other than Christopher Walken, starring as the left paddle.
Cowbell!
All you netheads out there, don't think you're not covered. Way of the Achromatic Vein has MMORPG capabilities, so you can slaver away your working hours with all your little e-bodies.
Not only did we get our hands on the game, we also got a chance to see some of the new armor and character classes you'll be playing with online. Here's some exclusive pieces of concept art! Well, I don't know about you, Raptor Face, but after playing this game, I was totally blown away. It seems they've really refined their formula. So I'm giving it 9 Steve Buscemi's out of 10.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. They took a flawed concept and pumped it so full of rad sauce. That's like making out with a shark with chainsaws for teeth. I'm giving it 50 flaming zombie tiger heads out of 10.
Hey! What'd I tell you about touching these cameras? You're supposed to be cleaning the gunk out of the sides of my controllers. Get back to work.
I was doing
Now,
Even
no
recording
talking.
anything. It's off.
Good game.
Over 17,000 players of the Chinese-based MMO King of the World have had their accounts frozen because they were male gamers playing as a female character. Real women now have to present webcam evidence of themselves to get their accounts reactivated. It's still permitted for females to play as males. Harmonix have confirmed how Rock Band will be bundled. The package will include a wired drum kit, a microphone, and a guitar controller, as well as the game, with it all available separately. The release of Rock Band has been delayed until 2008 in Australia, apparently so that it can include some local songs. Both Microsoft and Blizzard have released guidelines setting out how machinima makers can use their games to create works without breaking copyright laws or the end-user license agreements. Blizzard's World of Warcraft and the Halo series owned by Microsoft are both used extensively by machinima makers, with Forge, released in Halo 3, set to revolutionise how machinima is made. The digital rights advocacy group, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, has welcomed the new rules, saying it's great news that the companies are taking machinima seriously.
Good game. Cartoon superheroes and video games seem to go together like awesome sauce on Leetbix. Whilst in E3, I met a personal hero of mine, Mr. Stan Lee, the creator of X-Men, Fantastic Four, Silver Surfer, the Hulk, Captain America, and Spider-Man.
When I was about 13, I got my first Spider-Man comics, and ever since then I've been hooked.
People will always want to go back to the comic book and see how it all began.
Tom Ragg is possibly Australia's biggest Spider-Man fan. He's just returned from Comic-Con where he met Stan Lee. Tom is also a big gamer. What he doesn't know about Spidey just ain't worth knowing.
Back in the 60s when he was created, he was a throwaway character put in the back 11 pages of a comic that was about to be discontinued called Amazing Fantasy. He's constantly thrown into situations where he can't win, and he uses his intellect to sort a way out. But at the same time, he's concerned about, you know, making sure that life's all right with his girlfriend and that he can pay his rent, keep his job, and look after his aunt. And, you know, that's all the stuff that we have to deal with on a day-to-day.
Parker! That's the third call I got about giant lizards running amok in Gramercy Park. Giant lizards! Get me photos, pronto!
Right away, Mr. Jameson. Giant lizards? They aren't paying me enough.
Spider-Man is the luckiest fictional character in the... In fact, I shouldn't say that. There might be people who believe in him. Strike that. Spider-Man is the luckiest character in the world because the movie versions have been so wonderful, and the way he's done in the video games. I mean, even though I don't play the games myself, I could sit and watch them for hours. Just the action and the special effects. I think it must be tougher to do a video game than it is to do a movie. Because with the movie, you're telling one straight linear story. With the video game, you're going in a million directions at once. I don't know how they do it. I resent that they can do it without me, too.
Do you think the gaming industry has treated Spider-Man with respect?
Most of the video game adaptations from the film have been really, really good. The last one, not so much, but the second one was a classic game. And any time that he's been thrown in on like Marvel vs. Capcom fighting or the Ultimate Alliance games and things like that, they've always handled the character really well. Because they've got 40-something years of stories to pull on, they can always get really good storylines for the games to play out, and so they're always including different characters. Sometimes in the game, the side missions can be a bit repetitive, like constantly having to stop robbers and things like that. They could mix it up a little bit like that, but on the whole, I think they've handled it pretty well.
Don't go. This is the good part.
Superheroes are made for video games because most of them have these incredibly visual powers that look good. I mean, Spider-Man swinging on his web, crawling on walls, sticking to the ceiling, fighting because he's got strength that exceeds a normal human and so forth. And that great costume of his, that red costume which just catches your eye everywhere. He's made for video games. I wish I were involved in every phase of it. Unfortunately, I can't create video games, and I don't direct movies, so I feel a little out of it. I would like to be more involved. After they're made, they usually invite me to come and talk about them, because they know I do like to talk, and I don't necessarily have to know what I'm talking about. I just talk.
If Stan Lee were in charge of the video games and movies, what would be different?
I almost think that the characters would have a far more epic quality to them, because he somehow tapped into the mindset at the time when he was creating a lot of these characters of people were, you know, they were afraid because it was the Cold War, it was post-World War II, and a lot of these characters sort of slot into the Greek tragedy and the Greek myths, and, you know, he's based them on a lot of different archetypes from myth. And I think if you could do that with video games and films, whether that's creating new characters or building on the characters he already created, I think that'd be a really good thing. And it'd still be relevant today because it's Stan. Stan's the man. He knows how to do it.
Is the mere fact that it's a Spider-Man game enough to make you buy it?
Yes. Yes, without a doubt. I pre-order Spider-Man games, or pretty much any Marvel comic book game coming out. I'll pre-order, and then the second it's in, go and pick it up and take the day off work.
Do you think there's a danger that the popularity of video games will mean that kids will no longer read comic books?
People have always said, well, when television was invented, when we first had TV, people said, well, you can forget about the book business. There go books. Nobody's going to read a book anymore. Despite TV, the book business was as good or as big as ever. I think the same thing will happen. Comic books now have a lot more competition than they ever did. When I was doing comics, there was just radio and comics, and that was it, and movies. Today, you have TV, you have video games, you have computers, you have iPods, you have cell phones. I mean, there's a million things vying for everybody's attention. So comics may never be quite as big as they were years ago, but I think they'll always be around. And as long as the video games and the movies are as exciting as they and as successful as they are, I think people will always want to go back to the comic book and see how it all began.
Good game.
Gamers of Australia, we need you.
Here's your chance to show your gaming greatness to the nation. We're looking for entries into our Play of the Week. Could be a team down,
A new strat, anything, as long as it's a brilliant piece of gameage. Plus, you get the chance to win this fabulous prize pack.
gain +10 charisma with your very own Good Game shirt.
Rate your own games with this official Good Game rubber chicken.
Taunt your friends with a noob cup.
Enjoy this battery. It has been used in a Good Game controller. Battery may be flat.
And this cracked CD case containing deleted scenes for a good reason.
And last but not least, your very own piece of yellow fluff.
We're gonna kick things off with Z German, Australia's very own Command & Conquer 3 champ.
Hi, I'm Fabian, also known as Z German, and I'm going to be representing Australia in Command & Conquer 3. And today, I'm going to take you through one of my better games. I'm playing against Eurotuner. He was one of the world's best players. At the moment, I'm just gathering more resources, building more tanks and units to try and attack his resources to stop him from building tanks to go against me. I'm about 5 minutes into the game, and things are going pretty good. I've decided to go for a bit of a tank rush with a bit of infantry, as this has seemed to work the best for me, as I won the Australian qualifiers with this tactic. A normal game lasts, for me, about 12 to 15 minutes. Controlling the resources, which is Tiberium, is the key of this game. Once you have the resources, you can build more units and overwhelm your enemy. It's pretty unpredictable what he's going to do, but I do know that he will go after my Tiberium.
Tiberium field depleted.
To win a game, I wait until I have enough tanks, or enough massive tanks, to be able to overwhelm any kind of opposition force. This usually takes about 8 minutes and ensues in a very large battle. At the moment, I'm attacking his further outpost of Tiberium to try and get him off his game. He's currently sent some flying units at me. I don't know what they're called, but they're attacking my building, so I'm going to try and take them out. At the same time, I've been sending units over to his base to try and pull his units back to defend, and he's hitting me pretty hard. I've taken 2 heavy losses, so I've decided to pull back and save my units. Cutting and running is a great tactic to use in this game because it helps you save your units so that they can fight back another day. We're about 8 or 9 minutes into the game, and I'm just building up more units to try and overwhelm his base. At this point, I do believe I am taking the battle out, as I've now put in drop troopers behind his lines, taking out his power generators. Power generators enable his buildings to work and his defenses to work. At the same time, I've also sent in my larger attack force. I've taken out all his units, all his defensive structures, and all his building factories. Now it's just clean up and getting rid of everything else. And that's the game.
If you think you're worthy of a Play of the Week, check our website for details on how to send one in.
It's bonanza time for shooter fans, with 3 upcoming titles due out in the next few weeks, all wanting a piece of that competitive esports pie. Team Fortress 2, Call of Duty 4, but now we've got enemy territory Quake Wars.
Competitive pants time, Jung. Quake Wars takes place before the events of Quake 2, when the Strogg invade Earth. It's a multiplayer-only game, although you can play with bots. It focuses on the intelligent combining of abilities. Individual aim is important, but fizzles in the face of smart tactics.
It's the first AAA title from the game's developer Splash Damage. Paul Wedgwood, lead designer on the project, caught up with us at E3.
We started out originally, Splash Damage that is, as a mod team working on Quake 3. We produced a mod called Q3F and it was pretty popular. In fact, over in Australia you had OzQ Fortress, or OzQ3 Fortress, as one of the big fan sites that everybody used to go to play our mod. And as old clan players ourselves from the Quake 1 days, we kind of had a sense of what people wanted in a competitive game. We still have that kind of mod-making mindset within the office, which is just everybody's really passionate, not particularly efficient, but does their best, you know, to try and make everything as good as they can do, so that when a player jumps onto a server, they have a really cool time.
Not only is this game aiming to be fun online, it's aiming to be one of the few that are good enough for competitive play.
We've come up with our own list of what a competitive game needs to be successful. First up, teamwork. A team needs to be greater than the sum of its parts. Quake Wars gives you a definite advantage if you combine abilities.
Such as fending off flyers with a rocket launcher while your engineer builds the objective. Or EMPing a turret so your tank can get past. In fact, if you don't work as a team in this game, you're gonna get...
We've lost Side Leader!
Up next, easy to learn and hard to master.
That's right, it should be accessible enough to bring in new players, but containing enough depth to keep them. So far, so good on this one, although the game hasn't been out long enough to see any real masters.
Anti-cheat software is very important. Quake Wars uses Punkbuster, which has been reliable in the past, but not completely foolproof.
Well, I suppose nothing's foolproof. Performance is another one. Can it run on middle-range PCs? And I'm afraid the answer's a no on this one. It also plays very badly with lag, so dial-uppers, this one's not for you.
A good competitive game should be spectator-friendly. There is a spectator mode here, Jung, but there's no shoutcasting support, so there's nothing too special.
Next to last is modability. The community will want to make your game better, so why not let them? As expected, Splash Damage realized this, and a dev kit will be out.
And finally, balance.
Ah, balance. Balancing 2 asymmetrical factions is the holy grail of competitive game design. We asked Paul Wedgwood how he went about it.
What we have is 4 different approaches to playtesting. We have production testers at Splash Damage, which are ex-pro players, usually from sponsored clans like Return to Castle Wolfenstein teams and stuff. We have focus testing for complete newbies coming in who may not have even played a PC or an Xbox game before. We have a full-time crew at Activision that play round the clock, finding bugs. And then we have the open betas, of course, where the community at large gives us a whole bunch of feedback on balance. And it's this kind of heuristic approach of, you know, lots of passionate debate or arguing and just kind of iterative revision that then gives us a balanced, you know, really balanced gameplay.
The factions aren't actually as asymmetrical as they seem. In fact, the weapons are very similar, which means most of the balance in this game is going to come down to map design. And from what I've seen so far, most of the maps are biased towards the defender.
But surely, Jung, in a clan match, they're going to restart and go from the other side as well halfway through, so isn't that balance?
Well, it's not, and for 3 reasons. I mean, you've got the morale disadvantage to think about of the team that starts on the losing side. And then you've got luck to think about. You know, say you don't get any points in the first half, and then you switch sides and the other team gets 1 lucky point. Thirdly, there's statistics. When you have one side that's easier than the other, it skews the scores downwards and closer together, which is not an accurate depiction of skill.
But aren't we really just splitting hairs here? Because at the end of the day, the best team is still going to win.
But we've seen this before in games like Counter-Strike, where you have a choice between one map that's balanced on both sides and one that's biased towards one side. The competitive community far prefers the balanced one.
And it really needs the old ET community to get behind it as well. However, when a game like this is released, it tends to split the community, thus making it weaker. It has some imaginative objectives. For example, one map is split in two by a portal. Another one requires you to use little drones to fly through vents to complete objectives.
Thank you.
If you're not heavily into clan-based and teamwork-based gameplay, you're going to be finding yourself wanting a little bit more. It's not really for the casual gamer, Jung. I'm giving it 6.5 out of 10.
Yeah, it feels less like a mod and more like a game to me. Clan matches in Quake Wars will end up somewhere in between Battlefield 2 and old enemy territory, where small teams have to practice complex maneuvers in order to get objectives done. I also like the fact that we got this before the US, so I'll finish off with a nee. From a competitive perspective, I'm giving this 8 out of 10 rubber chickens.
Good game.
Well, almost time for us to log, Jung, but did you guess the name of the game for this week? And did you guess the name of the developer who worked on it?
I started over as a game tester, and I tested Tomb Raider. I was actually one of the first original Tomb Raider testers back in the day. So, yeah, I've been doing this for a while, so it's wonderful to still... You gotta love games to be in game design. You have to.
He's now working on the Simpsons game, due out later this year.
Tomb Raider was released in 1996, and it was praised for its complicated storyline, revolutionary graphics and soundtrack, and of course, its main character, Lara Croft.
It was one of the first games to have a female lead, although they did cop a bit of flack because of disproportionate body parts.
Next week is all about balls as we take a look at FIFA 08.
It's a goal and they're in front.
And I play rugby, well, virtual rugby against the Wallabies. Can they take me down in the ultimate of sporting trophies, the Waffle Cup?
And Lux takes a look at online bullying, who does it, why, and how you can avoid it happening to you. Don't forget you can watch Good Game on ABC2 or ABC, as well as being able to download or stream the show from our website. And as always, we're keen to hear your thoughts on the show or any games you've been playing, so leave a message on our forums. Till next time, gamers, Junglist out.
Bajo out.